Welcome, Middlers, to the Medium in the Middle podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I take you on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual exploration. I am a Reiki master teacher, a spiritual and business mentor, and of course, a psychic medium. And I am here to share my story and help you tap into your extraordinary abilities. Join me every Wednesday as we dive into the realms of intuition, energy healing, and all things mystical. Whether you're a seasoned spiritual seeker or just dipping your toes into the magical waters, this podcast is your go-to source for inspiration, guidance, and a whole lot of lessons and laughter along the way. Let's get started. Hello, Middlers. Welcome to episode 284. My name is Stephanie. I am the medium in the middle. This podcast is being released right before Halloween, so happy Halloween to everybody. Happy spooky season. I know they say that the veil is thinner around Halloween. I personally have never noticed a difference, but my veil, I feel, is always thin, so I'm always interested to see what other people say about the few days around Halloween, because is the veil thinner? What happens? Are you more sensitive? It's nice to hear other people's experiences. But nonetheless, happy Halloween. I feel like Halloween is one of those holidays where you're never too old to celebrate, and it's always so fun. I didn't go out last year. I was very busy with work and didn't plan anything. And I just purchased tickets to an event last night, so I organized my costume today. I am being a very original skeleton. Guys, I don't have much time. It has to be easy. I'm getting ready after work. I work in the morning. So it should be a fun event, though. Banff goes off for Halloween. We have a lot of Halloween parties. A lot of different hotels do parties. There's a lot of shows. Banff is also just a good party town, so Halloween's always fun. The only sad piece about Halloween around here is that we don't get any kid trick-or-treaters. I actually have a front door that goes to a sidewalk for the first time, and I was thinking like I could get candy and I could hand it out, but there is one area in town where everybody goes to, and those are the places that get a lot of kids and where all the kids go. Quite literally every other street in Banff does not get any kids. So I wish I was getting trick-or-treaters to hand out some candy or decorate my porch. It's not what we do here. Everybody goes up to Middle Springs, to all the houses, and everyone brings their kids there. It's just, you know where to go. There is a piece of Halloween where I want to dress as a witch. And if anyone asks me what I'm dressed up as, I can just say myself. I did that a few years ago, actually, and everybody knows me in town, so they literally said, "What are you dressed up as, Steph, yourself?" And I said, "Yes, that's the whole joke." So happy Halloween to all the witches and warlocks out there. It's our season. It's spooky season. Enjoy. If you get trick-or-treaters, if you're going to a party, if you're just trying to test out how thin the veil is, let me know how it goes. I'm interested to see what other people do. Today's episode is a mediumship episode, and it's kind of a part 2 to the Theresa Caputo episode because something very interesting happened, and I wanted to give it its own full episode because there's a lot to talk about. So this episode is going to be about names in mediumship. Getting names when you're doing a reading, saying, hey, your dad's name is da-da-da, your mom's name is ba-ba-ba. And this is a very interesting conversation because there are 2 polarizing views when it comes to names in mediumship. Before we jump into the episode, just a few quick announcements. You have 2 more chances to learn Reiki in 2025. So if taking a Reiki training was on your list, the next Reiki level 1 is November 8th and 9th. And then the last one of the year will be on December 6th and 7th. And then the last 2 Reiki level 2s of the year are November 22nd and 23rd and December 13th and 14th. The last mediumship practice circle is happening on November 15th. There will be no circle in December, but they will be coming back in January every month. And my mentorship program will be opening for January 2026 at the start of December. So if you are looking for mentorship, just so you know, that is coming next month. I cannot believe that I am saying these are the last trainings of 2025. Every year I look at the year and I think, how are we going to do this again? And by we, I mean me. And every year somehow we get to Q4 and it's like, how did we get here? How is it already the end? And now we're preparing to do it all over again. Thank you to everyone who attended the Strategic Business Planning Masterclass this past weekend. I really love doing that course, and it's a kickstart for 2026. I also started my 2026 business plan with you. So now we all have a lot of work to do over the next 4 to 6 weeks. If you missed it, I will be selling the replay until the end of the year. After that, in my humble opinion, it's too late for the masterclass to be useful for you. So if you missed out, you can still purchase that on my website. So in episode 282, I talked about going to see Theresa Caputo live, who is the Long Island medium. She was the original medium that got me even interested in mediumship. 15 years ago, a very long time ago. I used to watch her show on TV. And then I had the opportunity to go see her live. It kind of all lined up and fell in my lap. So I did a whole podcast episode on that. If you're interested, pause this and go listen to that one first. I shared with you all a lot of the details, a lot of the way that she read, a lot of the things that I noticed, a lot of the things that I was surprised by, a lot of the things that just blew me away by sheer talent and ability and how fast she worked. But there was one thing that I didn't talk about because I knew I wanted to give it its own episode. So in the episode that I did the recap on, I shared a few of the main stories. And one of the stories was the mom who was talking to her 2 daughters. And one of the big things was she said, "Who just downloaded the dating apps?" And the sisters were like, "No, we didn't. No, we didn't." And she was like, "Who just downloaded the dating apps?" And they were like, "No, no, no." And then she was like leaning and looking into the audience and she's like, "I'll wait." And then you hear them, "Oh, it's our dad. It's our dad. He must have just downloaded the dating apps." What I want to talk about today occurred when she was talking to their mother. And when she was first connecting to the soul, she connected to every single person by the way that the person died, which I also found was very interesting. So she said, "I have this person that died this way." The other example I gave was the ATV accident, and she explained the situation a little bit. So I have someone who died in an ATV accident on their property, knew their property like the back of their hand. This is how they died. And then she would see like, "Okay, who is that for you? Okay, that's your son. Let's go." So she was describing how the mother passed, and these girls were confirming. They already had microphones in their hand. And she said, "Did your mom's, was her name Sally? Or does she have an S name, but I'm hearing Sally?" And this was still when she was giving evidence about who their mom was. Like they had started to be like, "Oh, we think that's our mom," gave them microphones. And she turned around and she was like, "Oh, like, is your mom's name Sally?" And they were like, "Yes, like her name is Sally. Yes, 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 that's her." But the interesting part about this was as soon as she said the name and they confirmed, yes, my mom's name was Sally, she was like, "Oh, I hate getting names." And I was taken aback. I was like, What do you mean? What do you mean you hate getting names?" And she explained it further, I'm sure, because she gets this question all the time. And she said, "I'm not impressed by names. Names aren't good enough validation." She made a little joke and she was like, "I can look up your loved one's name on Facebook, can I?" And she said, "I need to give you more validating information than just the person's name. I almost never get names. I tell spirit I don't want names." She was almost like annoyed that she got a name. She was like, "Ugh, I hate that I just got a name." And this piece was, not even 30 seconds, but it really stuck with me because in that whole presentation, she channeled for an hour and a half. She did only get one name. In some of the cases, she also didn't even get the gender or the relationship. She would say, "I have this person who died this way. Who is this for you? Oh, it's your son. Okay." And then she'd get more information. Sometimes she would say, "I have a mother that died like this," but she didn't always say relationship. She didn't always say male or female. And she only said that one name, Sally. And this really made me think because I teach a lot of mediumship. I do the mediumship practice circle. I'm always working with mediumship. And to mediums, the golden standard, what we're all striving for, is names. As mediums, we love to say a name. We love to be like, who is George? Who is Sally? Who is Bobby? We love to throw a name out there because to us, that's like the golden standard. You're like, I got the golden egg. I got their name. But it's so interesting because the name is usually, I don't want to say the least important piece of information because I do think it is still validating and it's good to get a name. But when I was first starting off mediumship, one of the things that I was doing many moons ago, and I mainly did this for myself. So I was doing this for research for myself. I was doing this so that I could learn. I was doing this so that I could be convinced. But I asked every single person that I accidentally read how they knew for sure I was talking to their loved ones. So after every reading, if you even want to call it a reading, every time spirit came through and all those first few episodes of all the crazy experiences happened, if you want to know those stories, go back to the first 10 episodes. Those are my first experiences with spirit. They're all pretty crazy and random. And I was at a yoga class and this happened. I was driving on the highway and this happened. Once that started happening a few times for me, I started to be like, how did these people know I was talking to their son? How did they know I was talking to their dad? So I started to ask them, what was the most impactful piece of information, or what did I say that you knew I was talking to your loved one? And I did get names. I've been getting names from the very beginning. I can very often get a name or a letter or, who's the short name, like Ian. And never once has anyone ever said to me, in now 7 or 8 years, no one has ever said to me, oh, you said their name and that's how I knew you were talking to my loved one. No, they always say, oh, you talked about his car and he loved his car. Oh, you talked about his smile and he was known for his smile. Oh, when you said that she was back to normal and she had her memories, like that just means so much because she had dementia at the end of her life. There was always a very specific thing about their personality. And never once has anyone said to me, wow, you said their name and that's how I knew you were talking to their loved one. And I just think it's a really interesting disconnect where as mediums, we have this checklist in our head about the information we want to give you. We want to validate who they are. We want to tell you what they look like. We want to tell you how they died. We want to tell you some memories from when they were alive. We want to tell you some memories since when they passed. We want to do this. We want to do this. We want to give messages. We want to validate. We want to give more messages. We want a chance for you to ask questions. There's this whole process that we're doing. But what we see as the process and what the sitter is receiving on the receiving end of a mediumship reading are two completely different checklists. Because yes, everyone thinks we go to Facebook and look up their loved ones and somehow memorize all this information and creep you for days and hours and weeks to learn about who died and when and how, and maybe some things that we could dig up on Facebook that you and your grandma did 10 years ago, and maybe there was a picture of you at a farm and we talked about a farm. Honestly, if we were that good at memorizing and research things, I think that we would do something other than mediumship. Like if I was that good at being like, oh, I'm going to find a random person and then memorize stuff from their social media and then tell them it some twisted backwards way that, no. But I do understand that it's always in the back of people's head of like, you could have looked this up, you could have just Googled it. And you, of course, want to give information that can't be found on Google. For example, going back to Sally, the mom, when she was talking about the dating apps, there's no way she could have known that the dad just downloaded the dating apps. But the next piece of information that blew me even more away was when she started talking about getting his will together, protecting his money, getting his will together, protecting his money. And the sisters again were like, the last woman he dated took half of his money. Like there's absolutely no way she could know that. No Facebook, no ad, no Google search. That's just insane for her to all of a sudden start talking about the will and the dating apps together. Like, come on. I mean, I'm a believer, but even sometimes these things still blow me away. I'm like, come on, like how could you ever know that? I was actually having this conversation with one of my mentees. She was having readings with different people as market research, which I always highly recommend if you're developing or if you want to test things out. Book readings with multiple people. See what you like, see what you don't like. See how the flow works. see if you don't like their flow. Anyways, and one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I received from this mentee who had went to someone locally, she said that it was too evidential. She said she just kept giving me evidence and there wasn't a lot of messages. She said, I knew she was talking to my grandma. I wanted to talk to my grandma. She just kept telling me what my grandma looked like, what her personality was like, how she passed. She told me this, she told me that. And she said everything she said was true. She said, but I felt like I only got to talk to my grandma for a little bit of time. I felt like I only got a little bit of messages. Most of the reading was just evidence. And she's like, to me, I'm not impressed by that. And it was just something that I was like, oh my gosh, you are so right. Us as the mediums were like, we need evidence. How did they die? What was their personality like? What was their name? But the person receiving the information just wants to talk to their loved ones. They just want the messages. They want the confirmation. Yes, you need to start off with the evidence, but it is good to move on from that stage. And this is why I wanted to bring the conversation to the podcast, because I know a lot of developing mediums listen to this podcast. And it's just something for you to think about, something for you to consider of what is on your mind or on your checklist of, if I get a good reading, I said this, this, and this. But we always have to consider the sitter's experience. We are working for the sitter. We are doing this work for someone else's healing. We are doing this work to connect other people with their loved ones. We are the channel. We are the conduit. We are the middleman. We are the medium in the middle. See what I did there? And it's our job to deliver what they need, not just some list of things that, oh, I need to tell you it's your grandpa on your dad's side, and I need to tell you that he was tall, and I need to tell you that his car was blue, and I need to tell you that he had a dog named Max, and I need to tell you that. Okay, that's great, but what does my grandpa have to say to me? So when I'm working with other people and trying to teach them things, or even doing the monthly mediumship practice circle, I often offer this information of, hey guys, we're practicing names, we're practicing dates, we're practicing numbers, we're practicing whatever we're focusing on, which is great for us. But we also have to get to the message. We also have to make sure we are delivering a fully concise reading to someone that is healing. Because like I said in that episode, she started off her speech saying like, tonight's going to be full of healing. You're going to witness a lot of healing tonight. There's going to be healing. And I was thinking to myself like, well, yeah, like, oh, I'm here to be like entertained and watch you do mediumship and maybe cry a little bit. But healing, what do you mean healing? But then watching her read and watching her deliver healing information after healing message, I was like, oh, that's what you meant. Because you skipped all of the stuff that all of us little guys are fighting for. The names, the descriptions, the which side of the family, the this. You went to how they died, and you went to the message. How they died and the message. And that's how she was also able to be so impactful and read so fast. This is how your mom died, da-da-da-da-da. These are her messages, ba-ba-ba. This is what she's seen since she's passed away, da-da-da. And this is what she wants you to know. So when I said it was years of therapy, that's what I meant. It was validation so quickly, undeniably. And then it was straight to the messages or what the person needed to hear, where I feel like in, the rest of us who are not Olympians, who are not the Olympian, the top of the top mediums, there is a good chunk of time, I would say probably 15 to 20 minutes of a reading, is validating information to make sure you know that we have your dad, to prove to you that we have your dad, to prove to you enough information. And I just think it's a really interesting disconnect of what we expect and what the sitter expects. And I also think it was very interesting that she said she hates getting names, and she asked Spirit to not give her names because that is how much she doesn't think they are useful in a reading. I wanted to share this on the podcast because for everybody fighting for a name, or for everyone who thinks the name is the gold standard, number one, it's not. But also if you needed to hear it from an Olympian that it's not, she hates getting names. And she, had a very good reason why. It's not validating. It's not a healing message. Yes, it confirms, okay, your mom's name is Sally. Great. Me telling you all those other things about your mom, Sally, is so much more impactful. So do I think we should stop saying names in mediumship? No, I do still think it's a good party trick. But I do think on the list of things that are impactful, I would put it at the bottom. And I always like to tell people that, and I always like to teach people that. I say, I've been asking people, Every time spirit comes through, how did you know I was talking to your loved one? What made you know for sure I was talking to your loved one? How did you know? At what moment? What did I say that you knew this is this person? And never, ever, ever, not once has anyone said because you said their name. That has never been the answer. That has never been the most impactful thing. That has never been the piece of information that made them know that I was talking to them. Like, I still go back to Josh, that episode at the beginning, the thing that changed everything for me. I actually have a tattoo of Josh on my wrist. It's a ghost that I named Josh. Anyways, it's to honor that episode and my whole life changing. But I still remember talking to Josh, and I said, who's the short J name? I can't remember if I said Josh or not. But I know for sure I got the J name. And I was talking about what he looked like, and I was talking about how his hair was parted to the side, and I was talking about his smile and his slick little, like, I can see his face perfectly in my mind. And it also, just an aside, he comes up in so many readings for me. People will start to describe, I have this man, he has his hair parted to the side, he has this sly smile, he has this. Yeah, I'm like, that's Josh. I was like, I don't know him. He was just one of the first people that I've ever channeled that was like the most impactful, and that changed my life. So yeah, he's shown up multiple times in readings for me. I'm like, I don't know him, so you don't have to talk to him, but it's cool that he's here. Anyways, going back to the point of the story. So when I was talking to his dad afterwards, I was saying, how did you know I was talking to your son? Like, what did I say that made you know? And he said, the way you described his smile, I knew you were looking at him. And I still remember that sentence to this day. That happened in 2018. And he said, I could tell by the way that you were describing his smile and the way that he had this charm, and he had that little smirky smile that would just charm anyone. And just the way that you were describing him, the way your voice changed, he said, I knew you were looking at my son. And that has stuck with me over the years of, oh yeah, like, you know, when we're looking at your loved ones, when we say that one thing, when we say something about their eyes, when we say something about this. I had a client a few weeks ago, and she came in and she was telling me about her dad that was passed away. This will be a podcast episode, but long story short, she's from Australia, was in Hawaii. Her dad came through randomly. She's like a researcher, so she is not in this realm. And then from being in Hawaii, she found me, and then she was randomly in Canada, and she came for a session, and she was like, I just feel like I had to meet you. I'll do the whole long version of this story because it's so good, but her dad did come through. And when I was talking, I was like, oh, your dad's showing me his eyes, and that your son has the same eyes as him. He's showing me his eyes, your son's eyes. And she said, yeah, he does have the same eyes as my son. And she said, that's crazy because the medium in Hawaii that led me to you said the same thing about my dad. She also talked about his eyes, and she also talked about my son's eyes. And it's things like that that you remember, that we talked about their eyes, that we talked about their smile, that we talked about, you don't remember that we said their name. So I just wanted to bring that conversation and kind of drop it here, leave it for you to think what you think, or, you know, consider two different perspectives of it. But I do find in mediumship, people either love a name, they're like, yeah, name's very validating, like strive for a name, work on names. Other people are like, names don't matter. I can confirm to you that I'm talking to your loved ones in so many other ways. I don't need to say your mom's name is Sally. So that's been on my mind for the last few weeks because I've just been thinking about this name thing, because I'm a name person. I love to throw a name, and I get names a lot. So I'm always like, yeah, I got the name. I still remember when I was doing a group reading with a medium named Bree, and we were starting, and I wrote down 3 names, and we were working with this couple in the corner, and I was like, who's this, and who's this? The 3 names. And he was like, that's my grandma, that's my grandpa, and that's my uncle. And I was like, I just got 3 names in a row, and na. And even Brie, we were talking about it afterwards. She's like, you got 3 names in a row. She's like, that's insane. And I was like, that is insane. But again, it was insane for us as mediums. We were like, holy cow, you got 3 names in a row. That's great for me and my development and my learning. But was it, again, the most impactful thing that I said to those people about their grandma, grandpa, and uncle? Like, probably not. I'm sure they were like, oh, cool, she got all 3 of their names. But yeah, very interesting. I love the stuff in mediumship. I love the 2 sides of things. I love the 2 schools of thought, There's a lot of that in spirituality. It's this or this. Some people say this, some people say this. And it's just about finding what works for you, what you believe in, what you stand behind. I just found it was really interesting about how Theresa says she doesn't like getting names. She usually tells spirit not to give her names. And she finds it the least validating thing she could possibly say. I was like, oh, interesting. I've never thought about it that way. So that's what I have for you this week. For episode 284, just a little chit chat about mediumships and names and receiving information and what's impactful and what's not. I release new episodes every Wednesday. Subscribe to the podcast. All the links you need to work with me are down below in the show notes if you are ready to book a Reiki training before the end of the year. If you would like to join the last mediumship practice circle of the year happening on November 15th. Again, I cannot stress enough, all levels are welcome. You can get one piece of information for your partner. You can get 10 pieces of information for your partner. Your partner's still going to be so happy to sit for you and just let you try and practice and try your best. We had 6 people who it was their first time ever reading in the last circle. So it was so beautiful. Everybody had a great time. So the last circle of the year is November 15th. Everything you need is down below in the show notes or can be found on my website, themediuminthemiddle.com. Currently, my 2026 schedule is closed. I am changing my schedule pretty drastically for the new year. And I will be releasing readings to my client list next week. So if you're a client, keep an eye on your emails from me. Once those are released, I will release my 2026 books. But until next Wednesday, Middlers, when I see you in your ears, I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye, everybody.